Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. With the widespread reports of Russia intensifying its attacks on the territory of Ukraine, it now appears increasingly likely that the battle for Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, may be entering a decisive phase. Already there are reports and videos of Russian flags being raised on Ukrainian territory. It's difficult to verify the authenticity of a lot of the claims and counterclaims, but before we bring you the latest developments, this is some of the new video that's been coming in over the last several hours. Let's take a look at what exactly this shows. This video from Kiev, from Mariupol, that's further to the southeast, Sumy and Donetsk, some of the areas where there's been fighting. There's been artillery shelling, ballistic missile attacks. There have been a fierce defense by the Ukrainians in certain areas. There has been a kindergarten which has been hit in Sumy. Bodies, in fact, outside it. You can see on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And in Kiev, a residential complex was struck as well, as you can see in these images. Let's take a look at some of the major developments on the Ukraine front. Now, the latest first, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has told China's Xi Jinping that he could be ready to send a delegation to Minsk for talks with Ukraine. So that's a very big development. But on the ground, Russian forces are reported to be attacking multiple fronts and appear now to have entered the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. But there's no clear video of that as yet. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry is urging residents of Kiev to make Molotov cocktails, bombs, and attack Russian invaders. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that at least 137 people have been killed so far, including citizens. The UN Refugee Agency says about 1 lakh Ukrainians have been displaced. Western nations have announced sweeping sanctions. The External Affairs Ministry has rushed officials to several border crossing points as it works for a plan to evacuate 18,000 odd Indian nationals from the area. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to the Russian president, has appealed for an immediate ceasefire and dialogue, and has explained his concerns on Indian nationals. But let's take a look at the multiple fronts from where Russian forces have now invaded Ukraine. The map of the Ukraine shows the area that Russians have captured in 2014. It's marked over there in red, Crimea in the south, and the Russian separatist-held parts of Donbass, that's to the east. East again, you can see marked in red. Let's move to the next point. Now this shows the broad invasion routes of the Russians from Crimea in the south, Donbass in the east, and now down south from Belarus in the north. And the areas which have been targeted are these: Kharkiv, Chernobyl, Gostomel, and Kiev itself. It's quite clear that the threat of international sanctions, it must be mentioned, has perhaps not deterred Vladimir Putin at all. But will these eventually have some sort of an impact?
Ми захищаємо нашу державу наодинці. Як і вчора, найпотужніші сили світу спостерігають здалеку. Чи переконали Росію вчорашні санкції? Ми чуємо у своєму небі і бачимо на своїй землі, що цього недостатньо. Чужі війська все ще намагаються активізуватись на нашій території.
We are providing life-saving humanitarian relief to people in need, regardless of who or where they are. The protection of civilians must be priority number one. International humanitarian and human rights law must be upheld.
The sanctions measures we imposed today, I think without question, were the most consequential ever levied on Russia, and arguably the most consequential ever levied in history, if you look at the aggregate financial impact on Russia.
The reason the Russians appear to be making a lot of headway in this conflict is because of the massive disparity in the strength of the armed forces of both sides. Take a look at the military head-to-head. And this raises the question on why should Ukraine just desert, why should NATO desert Ukraine in the manner in which they have, besides making noises? Could they not have done more? Well, Ukraine has 2 lakh active personnel, Russia has 9 lakh, Ukraine has 9 lakh reserve personnel. Russia has 20 lakh, Ukraine has 2,000 plus artillery pieces, Russia has 7,571, Ukraine has 12,303 armored vehicles, Russia has 30,000 plus, Ukraine has 2,500 tanks, Russia has 12,420. So there is no comparison at all. Russia completely overwhelms the military forces of Ukraine. Well, joining us now, Jyoti Haier. She has been looking very carefully from the ground on the situation in Kiev. Thanks very much, Jyoti, for being with us. Is there clear evidence of the Russians now being in a part of Kiev?
We know for a fact that they are about 30 miles outside, right within the center of Kiev. No, there's not clear evidence. However, I just visited a site, Oblon, about, I would say about 10 minutes from here. And there has been evidence of, I shouldn't say evidence, there has been tanks going through there, but it wasn't clear if they were Ukrainian or if they were Russian. And I just want to touch on the fact that on what you were talking about with the difference between Russian and Ukrainian troops. So the bizarre thing that I was seeing today was the military, Ukrainian military, groups of Ukrainian military actually using the metro to get around. So that can give you a sense of perhaps how unprepared they are, or maybe it was just a fluke that we were seeing this. It was maybe a quick, ready measure. But usually you don't see a prepared army using public transportation to get from point A to point B. And then also what we're seeing is behind me here, we've got the Kreshadnik Plaza, and below it is a metro station, which is being used as a bomb shelter. So we've got people steadily going in and out. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but there was a whole bunch of armed police officers on either side. And so I've gone through to many of the shelters, and what I'm seeing is about 2 to 4 armed police officers. So no military, but 2 to 4 armed police officers in each bomb shelter there to protect civilians.
All right. And in terms of casualties, is there any figure, any detail at all, any sense at this juncture?
There are numbers flying from everywhere. In fact, there was even a number of 200 casualties coming from the Russian side at the airport, that the cargo airport that I was telling you about, 30 odd miles outside of Kiev proper. So these numbers right now are going to change over the next few days. We're hearing at least 170 on the eastern side. There's been casualties up to 20 down in the southern side of Odessa. There were definitely injuries this morning at that building that you mentioned that was hit. Mm-hmm. So the numbers are fluctuating. The casualties are fluctuating. The injuries are fluctuating. And because this is it's a moving, changing situation, right now, I don't think we should pinpoint numbers, because we are getting numbers from the Russian side and the Ukrainian side.
And is there active fighting taking place now? I mean, can you hear bombs and shelling?
Right at this moment, no. I would say about an hour ago, I did hear a helicopter. I haven't heard shelling. There was a lot of sirens throughout the afternoon, but I'd say the last one that I heard was about 40 minutes ago. So it's, what's happening, you have this, wake up in the morning, these strikes in the morning, and then you just leave the city of Kiev in fear for the rest of the day. Now we're going into evening. People are, getting into their bomb shelters. It's, almost, it's a sense of resignation that, this is where you're going to sleep tonight. And also at 5 o'clock in the morning, this seems to be a trend. At about 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning, there are movements from the Russian troops. So, that's where we're at right now.
All right. Well, you look after yourself now, Jyoti, and thank you very much for bringing us these reports. Thanks very much indeed. Well, joining us now, Prashant Kumar. He's a final year medical student who's been one of those students who's actually had to stay in a metro basement. I'm also joined by Akriti Kankarwal and Mandeep Satyarthi, who were in Odessa's the basement of a hostel, I believe, till yesterday. Thank you both very much for being with us. Akriti, let me come to you first. What is the situation where you are right now?
So the situation is very critical here. We as in Indians don't know how to react, because there is martial law applied here and we don't know what to do right now. We can't roam around here and there. We just need to sit in the respective places where we are. So right now I'm requesting Indian government to please evacuate us as soon as possible, because the situation is critical day by day, and this is not predicted by anyone.
Mandeep, you're in Odessa now, right?
Yes, right.
So well to the south of Ukraine. Have you heard or seen any of the fighting?
Sir, yesterday morning, sir, there was a lot of blast of, like it was like missiles, and sky was, sir, full of smoke. It was smoky, black smokes. We were able to hear the sounds of the blasts, and we were very panicked at that time, sir. We were not knowing what to do. Our buildings were like, it was shaking, and our windows, everything, it was shaking, sir. We are very panicked and scared of this situation, sir. So I also request our Indian government to evacuate us as soon as possible, because, yes, sir, according to the local news of Odessa, we came to hear that the next 2 days is very critical for us, very crucial for us. And
so let me ask Akriti this question. Akriti, have either you or Mandeep actually been in touch with the Indian Embassy or on their helpline numbers?
Yes, sir. The helpline numbers are working 24/7, and we got to know that they are doing as possible as the way they can, and they are helping us in every way. But since we are living in Odessa, because Odessa is just besides the Black Sea, so there is no way. How can we go to till the borders? Because the borders are literally 500 kilometers from our city, and the Moldova has also closed their borders, so we need to go via the Romania. But Romania is around 500 kilometers from our city, so we don't know that how can we reach at that borders.
And what is the government telling you? What is their advice for you to do right now? Stay put?
Their advice is that the person should be there where they are. There's you can't move anywhere. You need to be at your particular place, respective places.
Your parents must be very worried. What are they saying? Mandeep?
Sorry, sir.
Your parents, your well-wishers, your family, what are they saying? They must be traumatized by this.
Sir, they are very worried, sir. My mother is now sick due to this situation. She is asking that to come as soon as possible. She is very worried, sir. And my friends, they are, even whom I have not talked for 4 years, they are also trying to contact me that how I am here, what is the situation of the Ukraine. Yeah. But sir, embassy is also helping us in every way they can, and they are providing us helpline numbers where we can give them the information what is really happening here, and we want them to just quickly do the action as they can, because living here is not it's above the we can't survive like this, because at 3 a.m. we got the orders that we need to shift to the basement of the hostel. At 3 a.m. till 7 a.m. in the morning, till 4 hours we were in the basement of the hostel, and after coming back around 7 a.m. then we slept. So the situation is really critical here.
Look, I wish you both the very best of luck, and stay strong. You will get out of there. Sir. It's just a matter of time, all right? So it's good that you are dealing with the situation in the brave manner in which you are. Thanks very much. Well, I'm joined now by Jonah Black, former policy advisor to Joe Biden. He's a foreign policy expert at the National University of Singapore. Thanks, Jonah, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
How do you see the end game playing out as far as the Ukraine situation is concerned? Because, you know, some would suggest that perhaps Russia hasn't used the bulk of its military force. We haven't seen enormous casualties, and we haven't as yet seen large numbers of Russian troops on the ground inside cities. So therefore, is there a sense that Russia is trying to do just enough to ensure that the Ukrainians come to the table to start talking?
I don't think that Vladimir Putin is holding a whole lot back. He has launched airstrikes throughout the entire country, even parts of the country very far away from the puppet breakaway portions that he has recognized as bogus independent states. He has essentially tried to eliminate any type of armed resistance by destroying air assets, destroying tanks. This has not been a restrained campaign. I think that the fact that Kiev hasn't fallen yet has been due to the fact that the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military have put up a stronger resistance than Putin had calculated. Right. So I don't think he's trying to look for a negotiated way out. I think he's looking for total domination.
You know, in just the last couple of hours, he has made a statement. Now, we need to take these all of these statements from Putin with more than a pinch of salt. But he has made a statement to President Xi that he's willing to meet, or he's not he, his representatives are willing to hold peace talks in Minsk. That's the latest news coming in. Now, we don't know to what end, but assuming that, you know, regime change or whatever it is his final objective, do you see this as being perhaps a first step?
No, I see him as having the goal of regime change, of ousting the democratically elected government of Ukraine and installing a puppet regime that will be entirely beholden to him. I don't see any evidence that he has changed those goals at all. I think it's entirely possible that he is willing to sit down and waste time in insincere negotiations while he simultaneously tries to consolidate his hold over the territories he has and take more territories on the battlefield. But I see no reason to believe that he is interested in allowing the democratically elected government of Ukraine, which represents the people of Ukraine, that he is interested in letting it survive.
Jonah, I'm just trying to understand at this stage the sanctions which have been placed by the West. It appears that Putin actually factored those in and still went ahead and did it. Now, when will these sanctions really start impacting him? It's not impacted him so far at all.
Yes, well, you're quite right. He has reportedly put aside $600 billion by some reports and has very much prepared for the economic sanctions that have been imposed and additional ones. We've got to remember, sanctions are a very slow tool. They do not bring about change in a time frame measured in days or weeks, probably not even months. When sanctions have an effect, it often can take years.
Right.
And Vladimir Putin and those around him are unlikely to be those who feel the pinch the worst. So sanctions are a pretty unsatisfactory tool, but they're the only tool that really is available.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for sharing those views with us and, you know, sort of looking at where this is all headed. We're joined by Sviatoslav Yurash. He's a Ukrainian MP, head of the Parliamentary Friendship Group with India. Firstly, Mr. Yurash, are you okay? Is your family okay? How bad is the situation around you?
My family is in Western Ukraine. Western Ukraine has received plenty of missiles, plenty of attacks, but no direct attempts to occupy it at the moment. I'm in Kiev right now, actually with my team members, trying to bring together and trying to arm various individuals who essentially are keen to join in defense of Kiev. And basically, preparing the battle is what I've been. What has been my task today, basically.
Are you carrying a gun yourself? Are you armed yourself?
Yes. Same old AK-47 right here on my shoulder. I do apologize. I had a bit of a rush as well, so going from place to place.
Can you just lift up the weapon for a second? We couldn't catch it on the screen.
Sure, please.
Oh, right there we are. Right. And so the question is this: you are prepared to fight till the end yourself personally?
Very much so. It is our capital. It is our country. It is our land. It is our people. And I cannot just stand idly by as mad dictator tries to destroy my nation. So yes, I'm very much prepared and very much bringing the team forward.
And you do realize that by saying this, and we are being watched around the world, you would possibly be monitored as well, and the consequences of that could be dangerous for you. Is that something that you're willing to accept?
I apologize. Much movement around. So yes, very much so. Very much so. All those points that you mentioned for us are a consideration, but our job here is not to think about that, but try and work together to bring my nation together in every way.
You're an incredibly brave man. You're an incredibly brave man, Mr. Yurash, but I must ask you, what is the situation in the north of Kiev? Have Russian forces entered Kiev?
Russian forces have attacked my city and have basically tried to occupy the north of it, but we've beaten them back in the north of Kiev, and there are columns of their forces moving on Kiev, basically from the east and from the north, and our point right now is to prepare every direction to try and resist that attack. So yes, it is not an easy job by any measurement.
Right. Well, one final question to you. I know you need to go.
Yes.
There are some talks. There is some reports that Putin wants to talk in Minsk, not himself, but he'll send his representatives. What do you make of that?
As some better statesman than I can ever hope to be said, you cannot negotiate with the tiger when your head is in his mouth. So that is our situation, and we cannot, at this point, when his tanks are entering my country, occupying my country, taking bits and pieces of it, going from the south, the north, the west, and launching missiles all over the country, try and pretend this is a calm process. That will be no negotiation. That will be capitulation that he's proposing, and that we shall not do. We shall fight. We shall fight and show that Russia cannot destroy the international global world order as it wants.
All right. Well, your message has gone out, Mr. Yurash, all over the world. We broadcast. And stay safe and stay strong, and hopefully you will not need to defend yourself. Hopefully there will be a peace for you and your country.
Amen.
We can only pray that that takes place. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, an incredible conversation there, that MP with an AK-47 in his hand, arming people around him and saying that he's going to fight to the death. Joining us now, Prashant Kumar. He's finally a medical student. Prashant, how difficult has it been in the last, 24 hours for you?
It has been very difficult, critical and crucial as well, because we have been captivated here we are in the basement of Perimoha metro station in Kharkiv. So we have even advised right now 10 minutes prior that we have to go and stay as low as basement we can go, because there can be as many bomb shellings can be heard in very few minutes now itself. So right now it's very difficult and very frightening situation to understand what's happening out there.
What about your evacuation plans? Have you been in touch with the government of India?
We are trying to talk with each and every embassy possible out there.
Yeah.
But since we stay in the westernmost part, since we stay in the easternmost part of Ukraine, okay, and it's very much far enough for them to evacuate us, because it's almost like 1,000 miles from Kharkiv to reach Poland, Romania, or Hungary. So it can be very difficult for them to do evacuation as soon as possible.
Can you just show us around where you are right now? I believe you're in a basement or in a metro right now.
Yes. Yes, you can see each and every people around.
Just flip the camera, yeah. So can you just walk through that area a little bit as long as there's a signal?
It's very difficult to walk, because everywhere you can see people around. Okay, they're trying to have some place somewhere at least. They're sleeping, they're worried, they're tense, they're roaming from here and there.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to show.
We are seeing it very clearly. We are seeing it very clearly.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And many have taken hostage inside the metro as well, and some outside the metro.
So this is the basement that you're in right now, right? And it's the basement of what?
Yes.
It is the basement of what?
Metro station.
Of the metro station, I see. All
yes.
Right. Well, look, stay safe where you are, and hopefully the situation will improve soon, Prashant. It's very incredibly brave of you to share your story and indeed what has been happening around you. At this stage, we are joined by Yashvi. He is the owner of the Indian restaurant Himalaya in Kiev. Thank you, Yashvi, very much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about what you've woken up to and what the situation now is. Do you still hear shelling around you?
Hello, good evening, everyone. So the situation is pretty tense at the moment, as you've heard from people in Kiev already. I am right outside of Kiev at the moment. I'm not leaving anywhere far, because a lot of my team members are in Kiev right now. So we're not planning to evacuate anywhere, but we're trying to stay safe as much as possible. The situation has been very tensed over the past 2 days, and especially the nights. I live near Giuliani Airport, which is a domestic airport in Kyiv.
Mm-hmm.
And during all night, we've heard a lot of rocket launches and planes going on.
All right. And how are you getting your own food, water? Is that potentially a problem? Or is it going to become a problem? Cash. Is that going to be?
It is a problem as of now. Most of the shops are either closed or getting low on their supplies. Luckily, we got ready earlier, so we had a chance to get enough food supplies for us, for the family members, for the team members, and we got enough long-term foods which are here with us. We're just trying to be careful, not move out a lot, because it is pretty dangerous during the past 8-10 hours in Kyiv. So we're just managing with whatever we have with us.
What is your message to your friends over here in India who may be watching this?
My message is, guys, you have to spread the information. We're fighting back. I'm saying we because I've been living in Ukraine for 25 years and I have all my friends and family members here. So we're trying to stay calm. We're not panicking. We're hoping that the Ukrainian army and forces will manage and control the situation as long as possible. But we do need a lot of international support. We need people to know what's going on, what's really going on here.
Right. No, and we're trying to spread that message. Thanks very much for being with us and sharing, what's been happening around you. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a short break at this stage, come back with the very latest, including an interview with the British High Commissioner to New Delhi on the entire issue of sanctions. What sort of impact, if anything, will it have on Putin at the moment? Well, lots of views coming in on coup. Manohar Mahato writes, why is Ukraine not getting military support from the United States and NATO countries and left alone to fight this battle? Sudeep says, stay strong, Ukraine, make the greatest last stand in human history that will be remembered in coming centuries. Well, joining us now, Alex Ellis. He's the British High Commissioner to India. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. The big question at this juncture, what does the United Kingdom hope to achieve with the sanctions which you have placed on Russia?
What we're dealing with is the invasion by an autocracy of a democratic, independent, sovereign country and its attempted occupation through war. We cannot allow coercive militarism to triumph in the 21st century. That is why the United Kingdom, with many other countries in Europe and outside Europe, has produced this very large package of sanctions, whether the freezing of assets of individuals, over 100, including Russia's youngest billionaire, perhaps not coincidentally Vladimir Putin's ex-son-in-law, why we are freezing Russian banks and Russian companies out of Europe's biggest financial system in the City of London, why we have banned Aeroflot, why we have new sanctions on high-tech equipment. All of these are intended to show to President Putin and those around him that coercive militarism by an autocracy cannot and will not ultimately succeed.
High Commissioner, how soon do you expect these sanctions to have an impact? Thus far, it doesn't appear to have deterred Putin at all.
Putin's militaristic autocracy is determined to cause a humanitarian tragedy. And let's be clear, what will happen? Tens of thousands of people will die, millions will be displaced. He's doing this, creating an area of instability, including for tens of thousands of Indian students, as you mentioned earlier. But this is a long game. And we must show together, the free world, and those open democracies must show that there is a price to be paid, not today, then tomorrow, until they understand that adventurous militarism by autocracies cannot succeed. It will take time. We are allied. We will be determined.
High Commissioner, how is NATO being strengthened presently in Eastern Europe?
We are strengthening the NATO's borders with Russia. For example, the United Kingdom is doubling its presence in Estonia on the border with Russia. It is sending more jets down to South Europe. It has sent a Type 45 destroyer of the type we saw, which was also working with Indian Navy recently, to the Eastern Mediterranean. So land, sea, air, we are reinforcing. We are also getting ready another 1,000 troops for what is likely to be a huge humanitarian catastrophe caused again by an autocratic, militaristic adventurism.
High Commissioner, the possible humanitarian crisis with refugees, would you like to reflect a little bit more about this? Because all across Eastern Europe, we've already seen this huge upsurge of numbers, and people have now started crossing over. What does this mean for the livelihoods, the well-being, in fact, the survival of countless people?
Yeah, it's a human tragedy caused totally unnecessarily, entirely by President Putin and those around him, by sending in hundreds of thousands of troops into Ukraine. What its consequence, as I've said, tens of thousands of deaths. Millions of people will be displaced. We thought we'd put an end to that in Europe's history, but sadly we're back in that situation. But this is an issue not just for Europe, this is an issue for the world. Why is President Putin doing this? Why is he causing all this displacement, including for Indian students who all they've done is want to go and study medicine in Ukraine? He is doing it because President Putin fears what Ukraine wants and what India has and what the United Kingdom has, which is freedom, openness, democracy and opportunity. He is trying to prevent Ukraine from having those things, and this is the consequence: death, destruction and displacement.
High Commissioner, would you have liked stronger statements from India condemning the invasion of Ukraine?
We're still pursuing the diplomatic channel. I agree very much with what President Modi said about wanting to have a cessation to hostilities. That is entirely on President Putin and those around him to achieve that. We'll have the vote in the UN Security Council tonight, which will be an important signal to send to Russia about what the international community thinks about autocratic military adventurism. Those principles of the UN Charter, which the Russians have fired a missile through, apply to every country in the world, not just in Europe. But this situation will continue to evolve. We'll continue to talk to our friends and partners in India about how we can best ensure that military autocratic might does not become the modus operandi of the 21st century.
A final question, High Commissioner. Will the United Kingdom keep arming Ukraine, as you've done in the recent past?
You're right to say that we provided support through terms of defensive weaponry, through military training, and we'll have to see how the situation evolves. I fear that our main focus over the next few days is going to be on the humanitarian disaster, which is now going to emerge, as the UN Secretary General rightly said, and then we'll have to look at the situation. In the end, we want to have a peaceful solution to this, but President Putin and those around him have invaded with hundreds of thousands of troops a sovereign democratic country, and that cannot go unanswered.
What are the implications, sir, of a regime change in Ukraine? Because it appears that's exactly what that Putin appears to be pursuing right now, given the extent of this invasion.
I think you're right to point to the extent of the invasion and the fact this is going to be a mass occupation by a foreign force using mass military might of a democratically elected government and a democratic country. I can't speculate about exactly what will happen, but again, this is an extraordinary act, a quite unbelievable act, and the world will not quite be the same, I think, as a result, and we have to see that the forces of openness and democracy and opportunity in the end will win through diplomacy, through sanctions, through all the levers at our disposal across the world to make sure that autocracies do not thrive.
Right. High Commissioner, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts about the situation, and also speaking about the sanctions which the United Kingdom has imposed and the potential impact that it might have. Thanks very much indeed, sir. Well, joining us now, Dr. UPR Menon. He's an industrialist in Ukraine. He heads the Indian Farmer Manufacturers Association. Thank you, sir, very much, Dr. Menon, for being with us What is your immediate situation? What are you seeing and hearing around you?
Yeah, good afternoon. Just now we have received information from the Kyiv mayor that the Kyiv is preparing to repel the attack on Kyiv, and all of us are supposed to make supply, keep supplies of water, food and essentials, and the entrance to the government quarter are blocked and preparations are underway for defense. So all of us are supposed to be in the bunker, and we are expecting at any time action on Kyiv. That is what the latest which we have received, and the people are now making arrangements to keep enough water, food, and now towards the end of the day, it's 4 o'clock, almost shops are empty without water and food, bread, which is the major things which people used to buy. And maybe it may come tomorrow, it may appear on the shelves, but at present, because of after getting this message, people are keeping it, buying it and preparing to go to the bunker.
Dr. Menon, can you just tell us what you've been hearing when you woke up in the morning or late at night? Were there a lot of blasts? What exactly could you just describe?
I slept in a bunker yesterday. So, until afternoon we were in the bunker. So, yesterday evening also we had a siren to go to the bunker, and I went there. We were all there in the bunker. And so in the morning again, at about 11 o'clock, we had once again. So in between, we came to know that there were attacks on Kyiv, and in a district called Abalon district, one of the troops were blocked by the Ukrainian soldiers, and there are some casualties there. So one fact is for sure that the military is already in Kyiv.
All right, the military is already in Kiev. Is that something, Dr. Menon, that you are actually hearing from your friends and associates that they're already in Kiev, or I mean, we are seeing it on Twitter and things.
I am hearing from the government officials. It is on the media, and we have seen the photos, we have seen the videos, and it's recognized by the government media and government. That's why now the government has even declared that the tanks and the vehicles are coming to the city center, so that people are not supposed to take photographs, so that others won't recognize the vehicles, where the vehicles are located. So now the question is, the preparation is going on to protect the Kyiv, the city of Kyiv.
All right. Well, Dr. Menon, please do take care. Stay safe with your family, and hopefully the situation will get better sooner than later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, please, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We are also joined now by Sergei Strokan. He is a journalist with Kommersant in Moscow. Mr. Strokan, thank you very much for being with us. Is there any indicator so far that Russia or President Putin is willing to talk peace at this stage? Because, there have been a couple of tweets and things like that in the last couple of hours which suggest that, in fact, he's willing to send high-level officials to Ukraine to start that process. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Absolutely. This is one of the news breaking stories here, that Russia is ready to enter into negotiations with Ukrainian side, and the place can be the capital of Belarus, which is a part of union state with Russia, Minsk. It's an open secret that Russia from the very start was open for a dialogue. However, the problem is that the devil, as always, the devil is in details. Mm-hmm. Before coming to negotiating table, you have to understand what are your suggestions, what are your expectations, and what should be outcome as you see it. The whole story of this military operation in Ukraine, some are calling it war. We are not using this language. But anyway, the whole story of this operation was about fundamental shift in Ukrainian politics and geopolitical standing, which President Putin was unable to get through the endless, grueling negotiations, marathon, which took place in the last weeks and months.
Right.
I won't say that this is good decision. Probably this is bad decision, but even worse decision was to keep the situation as such.
But Mr. Strokan, I'm just trying to understand, without getting into the politics of it and, why it was done and things like that. I'm sure you agree that, saving lives is the most important thing. That's important for all sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I just want to discuss with you what the end strategy might be. Are we looking at regime change being an end strategy? Are we looking at something else potentially in talks?
I understand. That's a good question. Look, I can't read President Putin's mind, but what I can tell you that the basic idea, as I understand, the basic idea of the whole this Ukrainian saga or drama and tragedy was a twofold goal. First, to dismantle military infrastructure. Mm-hmm. This is the first goal of Ukraine. Second goal is to change the entire pattern of Ukrainian politics. I don't know whether we can call it change of regime or not. I don't know whether whether Zelensky would stay as a president or step down. That's an open question. But what is clear that President Putin would not leave, would not restrict his goal, his aim only to military goals.
Right.
Obviously, there should be a political package and drastic change of Ukrainian politics, whether with President Zelensky or without President Zelensky.
Would you say, Mr. Strokan, in your opinion, the reason Russia is willing to now start talking about peace is because you are nearing the end of your military objectives, that there is enough territory which has been captured to move to that stage?
Well, I don't think that there's anyone who can question the capability of the Russian army. And I don't think that Ukrainian army would be able to withstand that pressure. It's not possible physically. But we want to minimize, of course, victims and casualties. And another important point is that you have to understand, and I have to argue with your previous guest, that this is not a military operation which is going inside big cities. This is not urban warfare. I don't know why you put the photo of some devastated building, demolished building. I don't know where did you take, in what archives you took this photo.
No, it's not archives. It's not archives. No, let me answer that question. Because I've looked at that footage very carefully.
This is not Kiev, but listen. I will explain you. You see, yesterday the authorities of Kiev were distributing Kalashnikov to all people who want to protect capital city. But there's no army to fight. You see, there are no Russian intruders in Kiev. So the people with Kalashnikov staying, they are looking for an enemy which is not in Kiev.
So are you suggesting that all of the reports of fighting now taking place in the north of Kiev, well within the city itself, is inaccurate?
No. Outside city, once again. This is not about urban infrastructure. This is about taking control of strategic outlets, airports, arsenals of army.
So that's interesting. That's interesting, Mr.
Strokan. Not inside. There is no any warfare inside city. I want to emphasize that because.
So we will not see Russian boots on the ground. No, that's very important what you're suggesting. We will not see Russian boots on the ground in Kharkiv or in Kiev or in any of the other areas. You don't think that's going to happen?
The Russian boots on the ground are there, but not inside cities. Not inside cities. Somewhere outside, on the outskirts of cities, and there's a fierce fight, for example, over there, this strategic airport,
right,
which is located close to city. You see, yes, it's an open secret. There was a fierce battle there, and Russians were able to retake it. But this is not inside city, because all those people who took Kalashnikovs yesterday in Kiev, they don't know what to do with this Kalashnikov. There's no army, there's no enemy.
Well, let's hope for small mercies, Mr. Strokan. I'm sure you would accept that in this situation, when there's an invasion taking place, one needs to end it sooner than later. I'm sure we can all agree on that.
Yeah,
and let's hope that peace is the way forward. Thanks, sir, very much for being with us. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Let's take a look at some of the major developments on the Ukraine front. Now, the latest first Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has told China's Xi Jinping that he could be ready to send a delegation to Minsk for talks with Ukraine. So that's a very big development. But on the ground, Russian forces are reported to be attacking multiple fronts and appear now to have entered the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. But there's no clear video of that as yet. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry is urging residents of Kiev to make Molotov cocktails, bombs, and attack Russian invaders. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that at least 137 people have been killed so far, including citizens. The UN Refugee Agency says about 1 lakh Ukrainians have been displaced. Western nations have announced sweeping sanctions. The External Affairs Ministry has rushed officials to several border crossing points as it works for a plan to evacuate 18,000 odd Indian nationals from the area. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to the Russian president, has appealed for an immediate ceasefire and dialogue, and has explained his concerns on Indian nationals. But let's take a look at the multiple fronts from where Russian forces have now invaded Ukraine. The map of the Ukraine shows the area that Russians have captured in 2014. It's marked over there in red, Crimea in the south, and the Russian separatist held parts of Donbass, that's to the east. East again, you can see marked in red. Let's move to the next point. Now this shows the broad invasion routes of the Russians from Crimea in the south, Donbass in the east, and now down south from Belarus in the north. And the areas which have been targeted are these: Kharkiv, Chernobyl, Gostomel, and Kiev itself. It's quite clear that the threat of international sanctions, it must be mentioned, has perhaps not deterred Vladimir Putin at all. But will these eventually have some sort of an impact?
Захищаємо нашу державу наодинці. Як і вчора, найпотужніші сили світу спостерігають здалеку. Чи переконали Росії вчорашні санкції? Ми чуємо у своєму небі і бачимо на своїй землі, що цього недостатньо. Чужі війська все ще намагаються активізуватись на нашій території.
We are providing life-saving humanitarian relief to people in need, regardless of who or where they are. The protection of civilians must be priority number one. International humanitarian and human rights law must be upheld.
The sanctions measures we imposed today, I think without question, were the most consequential ever levied on Russia, and arguably the most consequential ever levied in history, if you look at the aggregate financial impact on Russia.